I'm trying to understand a little more about my eternal nature and inner being. And it was a couple months back, the CD of the month talked about that my inner being is a community. And I'm trying to understand that a little bit more. It's not, like, I feel singular, but apparently my inner being isn't. And also, on top of that, I mean, if it is a community, does it overlap with other people's inner being communities? And how does that work together?
It is not easy to see what is non-physical from a physical format, because you're right, you're accustomed to seeing things. You see yourselves as individual clumps sitting on your chairs, and you're not exactly morphing together, at least you don't want to. It would be interesting if you walked off with a piece of someone else attached to you as a result of this. And yet, it's interesting as we watch you, as you come together like this, even though you are individual energies, especially as a day moves on a little bit, there is a sort of coming together as your thoughts begin to mesh, and the thought that we are upon morphs into that which is more. Let's give you the picture that we've been talking about so that you can really feel a strong basis here. So you get that you're source energy, and you understand that part of you comes forth. Now, do you understand that the larger part of you remains non-physically focused? In other words, a part of the consciousness that is you is here. So here you are with this part of consciousness, and you are expanding, and when you do, that larger part that is you becomes more. In other words, as we visit with you here, we are not a singular consciousness, we are a collective consciousness, and the collective consciousness that is Abraham is what it is depending upon what you are asking about. In other words, it's not like there's this static knowledge or information that is now trying to project an idea to you. It's that what you are living and what you are asking is the summoning point of that which we are. When Jerry and Esther first began this work, or even before they met us in the form that they know us, Jerry had been reading the Seth material. And Esther really was sort of put off by it. She was afraid of it, really. And so she did not participate with Jerry for quite some time. He read the books. Esther said, don't bring them into the bedroom. They sort of spooked her. There was a picture on the back of one of them that made Esther uncomfortable. And so Jerry just silently read the books, and occasionally he would talk to Esther about something that he had read. And as he would speak what he had read, Esther began to feel some resonance with it, until before long Esther was actually asking to read with Jerry. And so every day they sat and read the Seth material. Well, not too long after that, a friend of theirs brought them a recording and said, would you like to hear this? And Jerry said, well, what is it? Because people were putting tape recordings in his hands often, and he rarely listened to any of them. And this person said, well, it's channeled. Well, Jerry had never heard the word channeled. He didn't know what it meant. And it was not a familiar word from the Seth material, but he played it. And what he heard was something that seemed akin to what he was hearing from or reading from Seth, different but similar in some ways. And so their friend said, this is a woman, she is coming to Phoenix this week, and you can make an appointment with her if you want and ask her any questions that you have. And so Jerry was eager to go. Esther was reluctant to go. They went and had a wonderful conversation where Jerry brought questions that he'd saved up for a very long time, and Esther sat silent and rather amazed as Theo answered Jerry's questions. And then Esther said, can we come back tomorrow? Because now Esther had questions. So they went back the next day, and Esther asked some questions. Jerry asked more questions. But the result of that was Esther had a sort of transforming experience where she completely lost her fear of whatever she had thought that was. She did not know how to quantify Theo. They did not know how to quantify Seth. They only knew from the experiences that they had had what it felt like. But At the end, the recorder clicked off and it was time for the half-hour segment to end. And now Esther is feeling a little frustration because she has more questions and her time is up. And another woman who was operating the tape recorder in the room said, well, would you like to ask one more question? Do you want to know who your spiritual guide is? And Esther, who had never thought of that terminology ever, liked the sound of it, and she said, yes, who is my spiritual guide? And Theo said, we are told, now here's a woman lying on a bed, Esther is thinking, she remembered Seth saying, give us a moment. We are told that it will be given to you directly. You will have a clairaudient experience and you will know. Esther asked what they could do to more effectively achieve goals, and Theo said, meditate, and that felt weird to them. And Esther said, what do you mean? And Theo said, sit in a quiet room and wear comfortable clothing and focus on your breathing, and when your mind wanders, and it will, release the thought and focus on your breathing. And then Esther said, should we bring our daughter Tracy to see you? And Theo said, if it is her wanting or her asking, but it is not necessary, for you too are channels. Well, Esther thought, how can something like that be and me not know it? It wasn't that she doubted it, she just didn't know it. And so they went home and they had two intentions in mind. Esther was going to find out who her spiritual guide was, whoever that was and whatever that meant. And she was going to meditate, whatever that meant, weird as it was. And Theo had encouraged them to do it together, to sit in a quiet, comfortable spot and do it together. And so they went home, they closed the curtains in the living room, they put on their bathrobes, they sat in two wingback chairs with an etagere between them because it just felt weird, and set a timer, and Esther focused upon her breathing. And as she relaxed into the counting of her breathing, she felt a detachment that was delicious. Just in releasing thought, she attuned to this vibration, to this very high frequency vibration. Now what it was, Esther had released her resistance enough to allow the fullness that is us to move through her. She was not a vibrational match to us, but her resistance was enough absent that she tuned to the vibration of that which is her spiritual guide. Now some would say, did she tap into God? Did she tap into Theo? Did she tap into Seth? What was Esther tapping into? And we say she was tapping into the vibrational escrow that had been set forth for her, the vibrational escrow that she launched before her birth, the vibrational escrow that all of that which she had been living had amassed. In other words, whatever you want to call it, she tapped in to the source energy part that is her. So then, as they began moving along, Jerry was so excited because he had so many questions, and he would prop Esther up in bed. At that time, she was sort of spelling letters with her nose in the air, and ask his questions. They seemed endless to Esther. He would wake her up even in the middle of the night to ask a question. And so once Jerry began dialoguing with us, which was all day, every day, just about. He just could not get enough conversation from us. One day, he got out his Seth books where he had written question after question after question in the margins. It had always been so interesting to him how there would be in the middle of a dialogue, and then it would be the end of the dialogue in the Seth book. And then Seth would say to Rob, is there something more? And Rob would say, no thank you, Seth. And Jerry would say, what? How can you be at the end of your questions? Because just this little bit of dialogue had piqued so many more questions within Jerry. And so now Jerry is visiting with us, and he says to us, I have these questions I would like to ask. And we said to him, address your questions as if you are addressing them to Seth, because the consciousness is here. We said, Seth and Abraham are chips off the same block, so to speak. Now, what that meant was the basis of that which they are both about, which is helping you to understand who you are, was similar vibration. And yet the work that Abraham has become through Esther and the work that Seth became through Jane, very different work. You see what we're getting at? It's not non-physical energy with something that they're wanting to project. It's a point of asking that makes the uniqueness of what is coming forth.
Yeah.
So Early on, Esther said, well, then I guess I'm speaking for Seth. And we said to her, let what you are doing be uniquely what you are doing. Do not express yourself as Theo or as Seth. Express yourself as that which is uniquely you. In other words, be a vibrational match. Get yourself into alignment. Don't try to make something happen. Get yourself into alignment and let that alignment be the vortex through which the answers come forth. And so whether you want to call your inner being God, or whether you want to call your inner being my inner being, it does not matter what label you give it. Just understand what it is, and understand that it is uniquely yours, you see. And as you tap into it, the phraseology, the terminology will expand through the context that is you. Jerry and Esther have been hearing some bits and pieces. There are a lot of people around the planet today that are calling them and letting them know that they are now channeling Abraham, that it is the same Abraham that Esther is channeling. And as Jerry and Esther listen to some of the recordings, they remember the excitement of those beginning days, but they are amused as they are listening to the phraseology that has been Esther's interpretation of the blocks of thought, being crammed into these. All of the buzzwords, all of the things that Esther has uniquely found are now suddenly turning up everywhere, hundreds of them in an hour segment. But the vibration of them doesn't have the resonance that they are accustomed to feeling. And so what we are wanting to say is, rather than trying to label it and make it be something, tune into it and flow with what it is. Let it flow from you or through you in response to what you are asking. So people have been asking us from the moment that we have been allowed through Esther's vortex to speak. They have been asking, do we all have access to this? And we say, without exception, you have access to this stream of consciousness that is source. And what you summon through the power and uniqueness of your vortex will not be Seth. It will not be Theo. It will not be God, so to speak. It will not be Abraham. It will be the culmination of that which all that you have lived has put into your vibrational escrow.
How's mine connected to everybody else's?
You said something really good about, are we sort of connected or kind of connected? And you are as connected to the aspect of non-physical as the poignancy of your question. Have any of you noticed, as you've been listening in a platform like this for a while, that sometimes you'll hear a recording and you'll hear it and you'll think you heard everything on it, and then you'll toss it in a drawer, and a month or a week or a year later you'll hear it again, and you will hear things on it that you swear were not there before. And it's not that they weren't there before, it's that you weren't there before. It's that you weren't vibrationally up to speed with that. So bring us back around to the specifics of what you're reaching for. In other words, try to coin it into the specifics of what you want to know right here and now, based upon where you now stand.
Okay, I have all these questions of what does that mean to be eternal? And then, how am I connected to my husband and my friends and to all the people in this room? And do we share inner beingness?
Yes, you do. In fact, you are more one than you are the separate individuals that you see yourself as. You have the potential of wonderful, delicious harmony with every person on the planet if you and they could come to the core of that which you naturally are. Let's pretend that you were all born at the same time. Now, we know that's ridiculous and not even possible, but just stay with us for a moment. Let's say that you all, the mass consciousness that is on the planet right now, let's say that you all came forth at the same moment. So you were all those babes, straight from source, pure positive energy. And as you look around, have you ever looked around and seen how the babies make friends with whoever is around? You're pure positive energy and you're in harmony. You have not deciphered your contrasting differences and you have not become polarized. So you're not pushing against anyone. The potential of all human is that you are all so much more in harmony with one another than you allow yourselves to be as you find your differences and push against. And yet You are all uniquely you. It's such a tricky thing to try to explain to you that you've come forth as this oneness to express yourself in this diversity for the purpose of uniquely taking thought beyond that which it has been before.